Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today and for watching this video. I am Amy V. Cooper. I am a photography business consultant and personal coach. And today I am with the gorgeous ray of sunshine, Chicago-based lifestyle and fashion photographer, Martine Séverin. How are you?
I'm well, Amy. Thank you so much for having me on. I can't wait to chat with you, and I'm so honored.
The honor is mine. And you and I met almost exactly a year ago, last year at the Palm Springs Photo Festival. And I loved meeting you so much. You had this amazing smile on your face and I couldn't forget it. And I remembered when I was walking around the festival after I'd met you, you kept like coming into my field of vision because you're so sparkling. That was
Oh,
such a
I
great.
remember that. You made such an impression on me. Um, and, I spent 15 minutes with you, and those 15 minutes really changed my world. And I came back home from Palm Springs with a different mission, really. It's funny how
Wow.
15 minutes can change your life.
Wow. I'm so flattered. Thank you for saying that. That's amazing. And I obviously have not forgotten you since. It's been so great to stay in touch and see how your portfolio has grown. And it's so exciting. And you have such an interesting journey. You've been all over the world. Tell us a little bit about you and how you came to be a photographer.
Oh boy, it's a long story, which starts in Haiti. So I was born and raised in Haiti up until the age of 10.
Mm.
And this was the time where pre-internet. Um, and I just remember that my family would send video cassettes back and forth because my mom had gone to the US and then we had stayed in Haiti being raised by my aunt and my grandmother. And what was interesting, she would send cassettes, and that's how people chatted because we didn't have video conference during that
Wow.
time. And the other thing that we exchanged were photos. And I remember one time where an uncle was taking photos of me and my sister, and he was saying, smile, and he went to press. And for some reason or another, I thought by smiling and by telling my mother I loved her, that she would know it from when she received the photo. Isn't that something?
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and I was like, "Ah, I think I want to do this picture taking thing." So that was the first time.
Hmm.
Fast forward many years, and then we moved to the US, and I saw my first Herb Ritts exhibit at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, and that completely rocked and changed my world.
Yeah.
And then from there, that was always kind of like the seed that was planted in my mind. And it took many years until I actually acted on it. I took photo classes in school and always was learning. I graduated slowly from being an amateur to taking classes at the New England School of Photography, taking classes at Wellesley College, where I went to school. And I was always learning photography, but then at the same time, I was learning my craft, or my career at the time, which was education policy.
Hmm.
And I, in a, I guess I was bored at one point because I was really overwhelmed with going to grad school and getting my master's in education policy, that I picked up the camera once again and started taking photos. And that's really where it just completely changed. And through taking photos on the street, and interviewing people and starting a blog, I started just getting jobs.
Hmm.
And then when we moved to London, and I stopped working in policy and stayed home with my son, one of the things I kept doing was just becoming more and more interested in composition and in photography. And I took classes at Central St. Martin's in
Wow.
London. Oh my gosh, that school is
Oh
amazing.
my gosh.
And so I took classes just in graphic design, honestly, because I think those classes I knew would really help me with composition and
Mm.
really creating a story in 2D, if you will. Um, and and then when we moved to Chicago, that was it. I was just like, let's do it. And then I spent time creating my portfolio, and this is where we are many years later.
Wow. That's amazing. I love that. I love to ask everyone that I interview, all the photographers that I interview, tell us about some of the best advice that you've been given in your career, or some of the best advice that you like to give other people.
One of the best pieces of advice I've ever received was to start where you are.
Mm,
And I think that sometimes we think that once we start, we're just going to take off and suddenly be Insta famous.
mm-hmm,
Um, and it's, we don't realize how much time it takes to um, sharpen your tool, sharpening yourself and your way of seeing the world and making the connections you need to make to get your craft as well as your business where you need to be. And I think there is a lot to be said with starting where you are. And I think for me, I always knew I liked photography, and I knew that in order to become a better photographer, that it had to be more than like knowing how to take a photo. It really had to do more with learning sales. So I took a class on sales, how to sell products.
mm-hmm.
And I took a class on, like I said, on graphic design, or I took a class on accounting. These are all the things that are very important to the job. And obviously, like, once you start being a full-time photographer, one of the things you figure out is like you're not shooting very often.
No, you're
You
not.
really are not. But you need to know how to market yourself. You need to
Mhm.
know. And I have your marketing calendar.
Uh,
And it helps so much. Oh my God.
oh, thank you. Thank you for
It's
saying
like
that.
it makes life easier. I don't have to think about anything. I have your calendar. I know what I need to do when I need to
Oh,
do it.
thank you.
um, but this is all to say, like, start where you are. You start learning one thing at a time. You start with the intention to do the work, and the intention to, this week you're going to execute this this test shoot because you need to understand this light, and it all builds on itself.
Hmm.
And that's the best piece of advice that I've ever gotten. That, along with always be creating.
Yeah.
In academia, there's this saying, publish or perish, because if you're not publishing papers, then no one
Mhm.
will know who you are. So you always have to be working on research, and you always have to be publishing. And I think for anyone who's in the arts, it's create or perish, because if you're
Mhm.
not creating, even if you are in between jobs, you need to be creating something. You need to be like, just
Mhm.
keeping on.
And
Those
I
are the
think, yeah, I think also to that point, what you're saying about start where you are, you're never going to be as ready as you want to be. So just start doing it and you'll get there. You'll figure out things along the way. It's never going to be the perfect time to do anything. You just have to go for it. I think that's so
I
smart.
I agree completely. And you learn what you need to learn as you go along,
Hmm.
and then you reiterate, right? Like, then next time you get better and you get better and you get better.
Yeah, exactly. I love the idea of um, it being okay to fail. That, failure is just your step to the next level of success.
It really is. There's this new podcast I'm a bit obsessed with. It's called How to Fail.
Oh.
And yeah, so this woman, she interviews, she's a journalist, and she interviews all of these people for her podcast.
Hmm.
Very, gosh, um, famous people like Simon Sinek and Samin
Hmm.
Nosrat on failure. Oh,
Hmm.
and she even had Malcolm Gladwell on too.
Oh yeah.
It's just about, I think we underestimate the power of failure. Granted, it doesn't mean that it's not, doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not painful, but it's important.
Yeah. It has to be welcomed. And you mentioned, you always be creating, always be publishing. What are you doing right now? I mean, as you and I are interviewing, we're on like day 50 of quarantine during
Yeah.
COVID. Are you doing anything to keep creating? I know you've got a child to take care of. Are you able to keep shooting? What's going on?
um,
How are you staying
I
inspired?
gosh, I think I'm staying inspired through my Sony. So I won this fellowship. I'm sorry, my nose is running. Excuse me for a second. I will hold on.
Well, I'll tell everyone you got this great honor of now being the Sony Alpha Female, and it's a scholarship, right?
Yeah, well, it's a grant.
A grant. Okay, tell us about that.
And so it's basically it's a grant that Sony gives you, and you are able to. It gives women, right? So there are, I think, this 6 year there are 6 of us,
Mm-hmm.
and the grant is to just execute on a project, whatever project that it is that you want to work on. And we all have very different projects that we're doing, but um, the money is really nice. But I
Yeah.
think um, in addition to that, we get a certain budget for gear.
Mm-hmm.
But most importantly for me, what's been life changing has been my mentor, Katrine Eisman,
Mm-hmm.
who is she's so it's hard to describe Katrine. Like, she's all knowing because literally she knows everybody in the industry,
Wow.
and she also has this great way of seeing through my excuses that I make.
Mm. Wow.
Which I need. Like, I'm the person who needs an accountability partner. Like,
Yeah.
I need someone to keep me accountable, because otherwise, like, I I have a hard time, like, with just using my willpower to get what I
Yeah.
need. That, like,
Yeah, we all
and
do.
yeah, we all do. And so Katrina is really wonderful. So I am collaborating with her on a project. We call it Creating in the Time of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so twice a week, we both will send each other a prompt,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other has to respond. So on yesterday, she sent me a prompt, and today, after I make dinner, I'll be making my response to her. So that's one thing that I'm doing.
So a prompt to shoot something, right?
A prompt to shoot
Uh-huh.
something.
And is Katrine, does she work at Sony?
Katrine does. She's a Sony artisan, and she not only that, but she works at Adobe.
Mm-hmm.
Adobe's her main gig.
Okay.
She's on team. She's primarily working on Lightroom.
Mm-hmm. They are so
Yeah.
supportive. I love that.
Yes,
Oh,
they
that's
are so supportive. Yesterday or the day before, I was talking with one of my one of my members of my cohort, and then next week we're having a happy hour. I mean, it's just an amazing. It's amazing to be part of that family.
wow. Well, congratulations again.
Thank you.
And so I asked you to pull some of your favorite images to share with.
Yes.
Do you want to pull those up and talk about them?
Yes, certainly. So I'll start by sharing my screen. So hold on a second. Okay.
There we go.
So this is an image that I created about a few months ago. I think last fall, obviously, based on the flowers. And so this was a test image, courtesy that I created because of somebody with whom I'm talking to right now, who said to me that she wanted to see more real moments in my portfolio. And so I knew that I had so I knew I had to and I had to sit with that for a while. And like, so we met in May,
Hmm.
but I didn't create this until September. And and this is all to say that sometimes it takes a long time, because if you want to create new work in between your regular life,
Hmm.
and the work that you need to do to pay your rent, this takes time. And so
Yeah.
it took a little bit of time to get the team together, to
Hmm.
find the right talent, and to just create something that had a story to tell. And the story was very simple. It was about a group of people, of friends, getting together and making s'mores,
Hmm.
right? And so that's a simple thing to say, but it took a lot of planning, obviously. And
Hmm.
so I look at this image and I love it, because it reminds me of what I miss most about life. Um,
Yes, girlfriends.
Girlfriends, we miss each other and just chatting. And, there are those little moments when one person says, let's have coffee, and you actually do. So that's one of the images I wanted to share
Yeah,
with you.
it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
And then there's a second one, which this is a little bit different. It has a little bit more attitude and a little bit of angst, but again, it goes back to how I'm feeling right now. I want to be outside, darn it. We can't go to parks, right?
Yeah.
And we can be active, but not as active as we wanted. But I also just love the energy that this model is throwing off. And I like so many things in terms of, I love the lighting, the LA light early in the morning.
So this was shot in Los Angeles.
Yes, this was shot in Los Angeles. So I really enjoy that.
I love your sporty portfolio. You do a lot of sportswear and athletic work that I think is really some of your strongest, some of my favorite. I love the styling. And again, anytime you're shooting in that LA light, I remember telling you, you need to get back to LA and put some more things into your
Yes, I love that early LA light, because the LA light is so different than the light here that we have in Chicago.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to get used to it, actually, and to know how I wanted to work with it. And so this is one of those moments. So this one is something that is a mistake. I think what's interesting about creating sometimes, especially when you're creating work for a talent, but then you feel compelled to just try something out. I've been building this portfolio unbeknownst to me until I went back and looked at everything together, obviously, of like men and flowers. Black men in particular, and flowers. And so this one, I'm really intrigued by it. And I've had to I think I need to journal a little bit more to figure out what is it that I'm trying to say, because this was just a throwaway, right? I'm like, come over here, let's try this. And I think sometimes the reason why I wanted to pull this photo is to say sometimes it's really important to kind of dig deeper into the things you're obsessed with, because you have to give them their time and give them their due. So that's one that I did.
Well, I want to hear more about that when you've got it figured out.
Thank you. I want to do more, so stay tuned on that one. And then again, so one of my brand promise is to create a sense of belonging in my work, and to really take more of to put people of different colors and different ethnicities in one frame, because I think at the end of the day, it really is all about how we come together to celebrate life. At least that's my mission. But I think that also has to do with the fact that I grew up in a communal society. So coming together is really important, because at the end of the day, the things that you have are really fleeting. They break. You can lose them. But the people are what, and relationships are what's more important. And so I really enjoyed this one. And this was another test that I did too. This is going back to what we talked about, always be creating. And this was a tough one, because it took such a long time to produce. But yet I really enjoyed it, because these people and the moment they're having is just a moment that I managed to capture. It's not one that I produced. Although, I mean, I kind of gave them specific prompts to get them going, but sometimes that's where the magic happens, where you give people prompts, and then what will happen will happen. So that's it
beautiful.
for now.
Thank you for sharing those with us.
No problem.
I have so much respect for the amount of work that goes into especially producing a lifestyle test shoot, because you have so many moving parts that you have to deal with. And I also have to commend you on how much beautiful diversity there is in your portfolio. I think that's another thing that really makes your work stand out to me. It's really beautiful. So, I mean, what's happening for you right now? Are you working? Are you getting any interest? Do you feel like Chicago is on lockdown forever? Like, what's happening there?
Oh, I don't know when it will end for us. We're supposed to be going on lockdown until the end of May. so I was listening to the interview you did with NT a while ago, and one of the things she said was that her stock photography that she's created has been helping her quite a bit. And I think, as soon as she said that, and I was like, I need to reach out to her and figure out how she did that, because I think it's one of those things that we overlook, particularly in the case of creating test work. And I had, so the shoot that I just showed you of the people holding the drinks, we had someone come in and express interest in those images, in which case then we had to send in all of the model releases to make sure that they would be all legit. So I think that's where I'm moving right now, and doing research on stock photography and making sure that my work is ready to be licensed. But other than that, I think honestly, Amy, my focus has been on my home. And hold on a second. And that's because today we didn't have a very successful homeschooling day, because I was doing this and I was doing that, and I wasn't really focused on helping my little one do what he needed to do. So it wasn't a good thing. He's like, you weren't there with me. And I was like, I was in the kitchen with you. What do you mean? But I wasn't there encouraging him and doing all of that. And I think sometimes you have to analyze, or you have to find out what's important and find out where you're needed the most. And right now I'm needed the most at home. And I am finding a little bit of time here and there to do about 15 hours of work a week. But it's not, and I know it's not what's needed, to really kind of make sure that I keep in touch with people and do it, but doing it in a way that's meaningful and respectful to what's happening with us now. So
now you have to accept that that's where you are. I have so many clients who are mothers, and for some of them it's just impossible, and that's okay. It's okay to be doing absolutely nothing right now, and to allow yourself that acceptance and that forgiveness, even though it's really hard, because also you want to be making money and ready for when things go back to normal. But I think it's so important I love what you said about knowing what's important right now, and that marketing might not be that thing. But I think that's also so interesting that, okay, our kids now calling us out on being present. That's really interesting.
Yeah. I fight it a little bit. And I had to make peace with it, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to, I just was finding that I was very irritable, and I was just trying to do too much. And really all I need to do is just I need to be here. And in the evenings and in the early mornings, but I find that even waking up 45 minutes before everybody else really gives me a great jump start. Or even there was one time I woke up a little earlier because I needed to get a project out. So, that works too, but such is life, right?
Yeah. And also you mentioned NT St. Clair, which is another interview that I have on YouTube. And she did a really great webinar about stock photography. And I'm sure if anyone reaches out to her, she will share that webinar recording with you. And we love her. She's so generous with her knowledge. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today. This has been beautiful. I'm wishing you so much luck and sanity and rest and presence. And it really means a lot to me that you joined me today. Is there anything else you want to tell us? Anything that you have coming up that you want to talk about?
Oh, yes. So I have a podcast coming up.
Wow.
So it's a podcast on where we chat with creatives of color and find out how they do what they do. What are their sources of inspiration? How do they create their work, and so on. So we are working on the third episode in terms of cleaning it up and getting it ready to launch. So once I'm ready to launch that, I'll be sharing it.
Yes, let us know.
Yeah, I can't even share the name right now, but for many other reasons. But once it goes live, it'll probably be on my Instagram page, which is martine.severin. So I'll be sharing that information there.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to that. That's wonderful and absolutely needed. And I'm sure if you're involved with it, it'll be very inspiring. And I'll be sure to include a link to your website in the notes with this video, as well as your Instagram page so everybody can follow you. And again, thank you so much. This has been really wonderful.
Oh, thank you, Amy. You're such a wonderful resource. And we've consulted, we've worked with before, and I know it's not going to be the last time either. And I often reference your site for information because I'm like, what? How can I get the answer on this? I'm like, wait a minute, someone, Amy, will probably
Aw.
have written about it. So I really appreciate
Oh, thank you for
how
saying.
much you're so dedicated to serving our community. We need you.
Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that so much. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Same here.
Okay. Bye,
Bye.
Martine.